I realize the quality of one's life is not dictated, nor is it determined by the amount of days that we live on this earth. It's about what we fit into those days that allows us to live a remarkable life. So I think it's about realizing that this is not a dress rehearsal. And when my time is up on this earth, my tank is going to be empty.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Heroes Like You podcast, where we explore the lives of people just like you and I who have had to overcome challenges in their lives and have gone on to accomplish great things. My name is Joe Belliston, and today's hero is Michael Crossland. Michael has quickly become one of my heroes and one of my favorite people. I was honored to interview him and hear more about his story. At the age of 11 months, he was diagnosed with cancer and has had to live with the effects of that his whole life. He's an international best-selling author and a speaker, sharing the stage with the likes of the Dalai Lama, Sir Richard Branson, Tony Robbins, and others. He's a baseball lover like myself, so we have that in common. I learned a lot from him. I was inspired by his story and his message, and I know you will be too. So without further ado, here is my conversation with Michael Crossland. Well, listen, I really appreciate you taking time to be on this show. It's just an honor to talk to you.
Thank you.
This show is all about adversity and overcoming challenges that, come into our lives expectedly or unexpectedly. And this is familiar territory for you. I mean, you've dealt with adversity probably more than most people. So I want to dive right into that. You were given, if I remember correctly from your book, you were given a 4% chance of living as a boy when you were diagnosed with cancer. And you beat the odds, obviously, and we're grateful for that. But can you tell us that story? It's a long story, so I don't know if you can do it in a nutshell. But what is that story? What did you go through? What do you remember about that time beating cancer?
Yeah, I'm just so grateful every day, as you know, and every single day for me is a bonus, a privilege, and a blessing. And I think that it's not the adversity in our life that defines us. It's really about how we deal with it. And I think that everybody listening, everybody in the world, we all have a story. We all have pain, we all have suffering. But what I've discovered in my life is that our pain and our suffering is not so different. But what is different is our solutions. And I think in that in itself can allow us to lead a remarkable life. And I was diagnosed at the age of 11 months. I was told that I was not going to make it, that there was a 96% death rate. So basically go home. But my mum, fortunately enough, she looked at my life not being 96% empty, but she chose to look at my life being 4% full. I started chemotherapy on my first birthday. My chemo cycle was 9 days on, 3 days off, 9 days on, 3 days off, not for weeks, not for months, but for years. I was on that same cycle until one day a doctor came in and said to my mum, the treatment's no longer doing the job. The tumor has built a resistance. It had taken over half of my body. It had grown up into my heart, my aorta. It was crushing my spine. And they said, we need to go into surgery. I went into surgery. 6 hours later, the doctors came out and said, we're sorry, but we didn't get it all, and there's now absolutely nothing that we can do. My dad and my three older sisters, they were flown from Coffs Harbour down to Sydney. For those that aren't in Australia, it's about a 7 or 8 hour drive, an hour odd flight. And they came into my room basically to say goodbye. But there was an American doctor. He was trialling an experimental drug. He was trialling it on 25 patients. He had 24 candidates, and he asked my family whether we wanted to be number 25. And I believe outside of love, hope is one of the most powerful words in the English dictionary. And I think that if we can instill a little bit of hope into somebody's life, we can instill courage, determination, and an inner fight that we probably have never seen nor experienced before. And that's exactly what it did for me. It gave me a little hope. It gave me a little fight. It gave me a little something to hold on to. We started that drug at 9 a.m. on a Tuesday morning. Within 24 hours, we were all transferred from the oncology ward to the burns unit. The after effects of this drug were so bad that we were completely covered from head to toe in blisters. They would wrap us up in bandages and they would lie us in baths full of ice, trying to prevent our brains from frying. But sadly, 24 out of 25 of us that were on that drug passed away. And I say to people around the world that I'm one of the lucky ones. I never say I'm one of the lucky ones because I'm still alive. I say I'm one of the lucky ones because I wasn't my mum. And my mum, she had to make a choice every single day to inject a drug into a child that's killed every single person that ever taken it. And death counselling once a week for 2 hours to deal with what was going to happen to a little boy must have been absolutely heartbreaking and horrific. So for me, and I'm sure we'll get through it today, but for me, I've realized of recent times that it is far easier lying in the bed and feeling the pain than standing next to it and watching someone else in the pain. And obviously, there's been a lot of challenges since then. I was told I'd never go to school. I was lucky enough to graduate high school and go to college. They told me I'd never play sport. I was fortunate enough to play baseball in America and represent my country here back home in Australia. They told me that I would be a housebound baby, and if I reached my teenage years, it'll be a miracle. And yes, the teenage miracle thing was certainly apparent. At the age of 12, I suffered my first major heart attack. But reflecting back on my life now, last year in 2019, I was on 180 flights. I spoke in 22 countries around the world. I was lucky enough to share the stage with the Dalai Lama and Richard Branson and everybody in between. So yes, there's been a lot of challenges. Yes, there's been a lot of adversities. But I think because of the way that I've looked and dealt and responded to my adversities, that has enabled me to lead and achieve a really great life.
Well, that's an incredible story and a great outcome, just an incredible outcome. And I want to dive into it just a little bit. You said so much there, but let's talk about, first of all, that hope. What is it about hope that keeps people alive, keeps them going, and how do we instill hope into other people that are, for lack of a better term, hopeless?
I think perspective is such a powerful thing. And I think that if we can instill perspective in the hearts and minds of people, regardless of the challenges that they face, they begin to realize that their pain and suffering is not the worst that it could possibly be. And I was only talking to a dear friend of mine this morning, and I truly believe that we learn in the light what we desperately need in the dark. Mm. And I think that we so need to fundamentally understand that and realize that when things are good, we need to make sure we're continually investing in ourselves and instilling ourselves with a shift in our mindset and empowering ourselves with the tools that we need so that we have the capabilities to recall on them when we actually need them.
Yeah.
And I think that that's what hope does. You know, hope gives us a feeling of the ability to break through and achieve. And, you know, I love that saying, I cried when I didn't get a new pair of shoes until I saw a boy that had no feet.
Right.
And I think that it is such a powerful exercise to compare every now and then your adversities to somebody else's, for you to realize how lucky you are to have what you have. Realize that life could be so much worse than what it is, and to be grateful for the abilities that we do have as opposed to the disabilities that we may have.
Yeah, absolutely. My daughter was talking just yesterday about how there's no food to eat, and the fridge is stacked full of food, the cupboards are full, but there's nothing good to eat. My thought is, let's take you somewhere where there really is no food. And you experienced that when you went to Haiti.
Yeah.
Is that something we should do, is put ourselves in situations that are so uncomfortable and just see what the other part of the world looks like and lives like?
Yeah, for those that don't know, I came back from America after another health issue at the age of 18. So my career was over. I never played baseball again. I got into the corporate scene. I managed to have 600 staff at the age of 23. I climbed the corporate ladder very, very quickly.
Wow.
And then in 2008, 2009, 2010, my health began to deteriorate rapidly, and I ended up getting bacterial meningitis. I got fluid on the brain. Then I had Bell's palsy down the right-hand side of my body. I had to learn to walk again and talk again, and
you never really got to
the point.
My goodness.
I've got to be honest with you. I got to a point where I just didn't want to fight anymore.
Yeah.
You know, I'd had enough. And whilst I was in hospital, I realized fundamentally to lead a really wonderful and fulfilled life, we just need to master two things. The first thing I needed to master was what success was. And I realized that it's not about the materialistic possessions that I gain, but it's about, you know, what I can do to serve other people to make their life a little better. You know, it's not about how big my house is. It's about how big my heart is. It's about making a positive impact in somebody else's life every day. And the second thing is I needed to master the gift of giving, because for me, for a long time, I always thought it was the more you give, the more you shall receive. But that saying should be the more you give expecting nothing in return, the more you shall receive. And it's not so much about, it's actually, in my opinion, it's about giving without remembering and receiving without forgetting. So I wanted to identify a place where I could give and serve and after the earthquake hit 2010 down there, killed 316,000 odd people, left millions of people homeless. I was working with the Toronto Blue Jays at the time at their spring training camp, and I got asked to go down there, and I went down, and it changed my life. We opened a school. Now we have 270 kids go to the school, and then on the way back, I walked past this village, and there was an orphanage in there, and we were told we could never have kids, and we just decided to do something and to give in a way where we will never be able to receive anything in return from them, or so we thought. So now, my wife and I, we have an orphanage down there. We have 40 kids that we look after 365 days a year. Every one of them gets a roof over their head. They get 3 meals a day. They all get an education. They're getting to realize that the pain and suffering that they were dealt with is not normal, and they can achieve some remarkable things. And now we've had a kid graduate from our orphanage and from school. He got a full ride scholarship to go to Brazil to study engineering, and now he's just finished his second year of studies, and he's in the top 10% of university students from around the world. And I think if there was any person in the world that had an excuse, had a reason, had a justifiable reason to quit on life and not give it his all, it was this kid. Yet he used the pain of his past as the passport to inject him into an amazing future. And I think that's just amazing, and it can shift our perspective. So, to your question, obviously we would love to be able to give our kids the exposure to that type of real, raw suffering in life. But sometimes it's just about trying to educate them as best we can, to have them understand how lucky they are to have what they have, and realize that, we do have food, right, and the house is not empty.
Right. Well, that's phenomenal. What a great story. And that's fulfillment for you, probably, that money just can't buy. I mean, I can't imagine the pride that you have for that kid, and the orphanage, and the fulfillment and feelings you get from that.
Yeah, as I said, I tried to do something with somebody who could never return the favor, but these kids have given me far more than I could ever give them. They have taught me more than I could ever teach them, and I know that I'm a better person, not because of what I have done for them, but for what they have done for me. And that in itself is just a really beautiful blessing that I never thought that I was going to receive, and I'm just so grateful for it.
That's awesome. Well, and you mentioned in your book, and the book I'm talking about is Kids Don't Get Cancer. Phenomenal book, story of your life. And if you want to be moved to tears, just read that book. But in there, you mentioned you go to Haiti for the first time, and you see these kids with nothing. I mean, they've lost their family, no food, no shelter. They have nothing but a smile on their face. My question is, we see a lot of people that seemingly have everything in life, right? They have a good family, they have money, they have food, they have fancy clothes, fancy cars, yet they're depressed, they're anxious because they just don't think life is good. Why is that? Why can someone with nothing be content and happy, and someone with seemingly everything can be on the verge of ending their life prematurely? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think that if I had an answer to that, I would solve a lot of the world's problems.
No doubt.
But, I remember the Dalai Lama saying, we work our entire life and we sacrifice our health to create wealth, and then we have to sacrifice our wealth to save our health. And sometimes we wait until it's too late before we decide to change. We wait until we're diagnosed with lung cancer before we think maybe we should stop smoking. We wait until we lose someone that we love before we tell them that we love them. And I think that when we change the way we look at things, the things we look at change. And for example, those beautiful kids in Haiti, to your point, these kids have nothing. They have no mum, no dad. At one stage, they had no roof over their head, no food in their tummy. But they woke up this morning and they thought they had everything. And the reason why they thought they had everything is because they woke up this morning. And I think the more that we can really understand that and digest that saying, they feel as though they have everything. And the reason why they thought they had everything is because they woke up this morning.
Right.
That's a game changer. So I think right now it's so important that we educate and inspire people for them to understand that they are truly blessed with what they have, and don't wait until they lose everything. Don't wait until they lose their loved ones, the roof over their head. And I think that, when we start to control our mind, we start to control our life. And we don't need to be rich, powerful, or famous to control our mind. We just need to have the ability to work hard on our subconscious mind. And I think, as I said to you before, we miss the importance of educating ourselves inwardly whilst we are in the state of mind where we are in the light.
Yeah.
To draw back on that when we're in the darkness.
Right.
And I think that's really, really important. And right now, the world is filled with fear and uncertainty. And I think that's why it is so important right now that we invest inwardly, we invest in ourselves, and we grow ourselves, and we value ourselves, and we begin to love ourselves so that we can be a great father, a great mother, a great neighbor, a great friend, a great version of ourselves. And we can get through this so that we can reflect back on it and realize, you know what, yes, we may have a long way to go, but we have come so far. And I think that's really important to acknowledge.
Yeah, absolutely. Take advantage of the good times so then when it's not good, you can be prepared and look back on that and gather strength from that. It's kind of like the pandemic that we're facing right now, at least in the States. Life was great. Economy was good. Then March happened, and overnight it seemed like everything fell apart and chaos ensued.
But if you did a survey in February,
right,
and asked the United States, asked the world, how's the world coping? How's the financial situation? How's the health of the country? You would have had a massive disparity in answers, and it's purely based on their mindset and the way they look at the situations that they are faced with. I love the 2 arrow effect. The first arrow is the actual situation, and the second arrow is the story that we tell ourselves about the situation.
Right.
Like we wake up in the morning and it's raining, so it's raining. That's the situation. But the second arrow, which is the arrow that causes us all the pain, we go, oh, it's raining. It's going to be a doomy, gloomy day today.
Right.
We can't do this and we can't do that because it's raining. And I think that's the same as where we are right now. We spent such a long time in our life when things were good complaining about them, and now things are actually tough, and we want them to go back the way they were when we were complaining about them.
Paradox. But to your point, fix your mind and your life will change, right? It doesn't matter the circumstances necessarily. Obviously, there are better circumstances than others, and you want to be in the best circumstance you can be and create that. But regardless of the circumstances, you control your mind, and if that's right, then the saying that you use so often, it's not the adversity that defines you, but how you finish the sentence for me, how you react to it, or how
you deal with it.
How you deal with it. Yeah.
And I really believe that like what we do in the next 6 minutes, the next 6 hours, the next 6 days are going to determine the success that we have in our life in 6 years' time.
Yeah.
It's about what we do right now. We might not get a return on our investment in ourselves today or tomorrow or the next day, but it's about fundamentally where we're going to be in years down the track because of what we've done today.
Right.
And it's that whole habit thing. We have an action that we implement every single day, and if we can do it for 21 days, it becomes a habit, and now we don't need to think about it anymore because naturally it happens. When was the last time you thought, on my to-do list today, I need to make sure that I write down, brush my teeth.
Right.
I need to write down, have breakfast. It's a habit. We've been doing it for so long, it happens. So when we start to put things into our daily routine that becomes a habit that's actually growing our mind and empowering us to be better people, then all of a sudden that becomes a habit, and all of a sudden we wonder why we're so optimistic when times get tough.
Right. Yeah, and it can be hard to start, right? I mean, learning to walk, we were wobbly for a while. And until we didn't have to think about it. But it can be hard to start, and it can be hard to be consistent at the beginning. But I love that point that it's the small things that you do on a daily, consistent basis that's going to make your life what it is down the road in the long run, right?
Yeah, consistency is the key. And I think back to your analogy about walking, if every time we tried to walk, someone lifted us up, someone carried us, someone held our hand, then we'd never actually learn to walk. And now we're adults, but we just constantly want someone to hold our hand and carry us through the dark times.
Right.
These are the times that we grow. These are the times that prepare us to live a life filled with gratitude.
Sure.
Yet we want someone to take it all away and carry us. And I said, if every time we tried to walk when we were babies, someone picked us up, we would never, ever learn to walk. And now's the time we all, mankind, we all need to learn to walk.
Right. Well, you mentioned your mom earlier, and this is a perfect segue into this. And I can't imagine being a father myself, having to deal with an 11-month-old baby getting cancer, and then the years and years following that, and like you talked about, giving them drugs that just wiped you out. I can't imagine your mom, what she went through. But at one point, you were released from the hospital. And correct me if I'm wrong, but the doctor said, that's great, you can go home, but don't be too optimistic. the chances of him living past a teenager are slim. He won't go to school. He's going to be homebound. And your mom didn't really listen to the doctors at that point, and she sent you to school either the next day or the next week. I think that was a good move, and it sounds like you agree with that. Why do you think your mom did that, and why was it beneficial for you, rather than, like you said, holding your hand and holding you through that really difficult time?
I think it instilled a very important mindset for me as a young boy, and that was that we can achieve anything in our life if we believe in ourselves. And no one in your life is ever going to tell you what you can do. They'll only ever tell you what you can't do. And I think that if I reflect back on my entire journey up until now, I think it was 6, and they said, your son will never go to school, never play sport, be a housebound baby, and if he reaches his teenage years, it'll be a miracle. She walks through the curtains, and I make out I didn't hear what the doctor said. I said, what did the doctors say? And she said, the doctors told me that everything was going to be okay. They told me when I was 12 and I had a heart attack, they said to mum outside, your son's heart is so badly damaged that he will never play sport again. She walks through the curtains. I said, what did the doctors say? The doctors told me that everything was going to be okay.
Wow.
2.5 years later, I was lucky enough to make the Australian Expos team and got a chance to fly to America and achieve my dreams. And then when I was 27, 28, and I had bacterial meningitis, fluid on the brain, things were looking really bad. I was as low as I'd ever been in my life. I was so depressed. And they were worried that I'd never walk again, never talk again. And my mum come through the door and told me the doctor said everything was going to be okay. And then for those listeners that don't know, in 2016, unfortunately, the doctors found 4 more tumors in my throat. They told me that my tomorrows weren't guaranteed. As a 32-year-old man, I prepared my own funeral. I did a video message saying goodbye to my family.
Wow.
And I remember driving home from the doctors and my phone rang and it was my mum. And I knew exactly what she was going to ask and I knew exactly what I was going to say. She said, what did the doctor say? And after all these years, for the first time in my life, I was in a position to be able to give back. And I told her that everything was going to be okay. And here I am. 4 years later, I'm still fighting. 3 of the 4 tumors were removed. Unfortunately, the 4th one is still around my vocal cord. There's nothing they can do about it. But I realize the quality of one's life is not dictated, nor is it determined by the amount of days that we live on this earth. It's about what we fit into those days that allows us to live a remarkable life. So I think it's about realizing that this is not a dress rehearsal. And when my time is up on this earth, my tank is going to be empty. And it's incredible what we as parents can do to instill optimism and hope into somebody's life, to give them the opportunity to become a hero. I feel so unworthy of so many people wanting me to be a part of their make-a-wish, wanting to meet me before they pass away, calling me their hero, their idol, their admiration. And I'm none of that. I'm just an ordinary old Australian that's faced my fair share of adversities. And now I'm very, very privileged and blessed to try and inspire people from all walks of life around the world to simply leave the world a little bit better place than what they found it.
That is beautiful. That is good. You have a lot going on, and I want to honor your time, but I do have 1 or 2 more questions for you. We had a couple years ago, a friend of ours, their son was diagnosed with leukemia, and he made it to 11 years old before he passed. If you're a one-on-one with that family, with that mom who is grieving, and I'm sure she's still grieving today, what do you say to someone who wasn't as lucky as you were, who didn't beat the odds, who lost a child, or the child who's in the hospital who doesn't have a chance? What do you say to these families to give them hope and help them through this time?
Yeah, well, obviously it's horrific. It's heartbreaking. It's inhumane. And my only hope is that they have faith. They have faith in their heart that they're going to a better place. They're going to a place where they will be for eternity. And that one day when your time is right and your time is up, then you will again be reunited. That's a really big hope for me. But secondly, I think that as I said before, the quality of one's life is not dictated or determined by the amount of days that we live, but what we fit into them. And I think for the children or the people that have passed, it's about really reflecting on the joyous moments that they brought to our life and the positive impact that they've had in our life, and celebrating their life. Obviously, mourning is something that is horrific and painful, but to celebrate somebody's life for the positive impact that they had on you is something I think is so important and remarkable. And for those that have been given an end date far too young that are still here, my advice to those parents is, do up a wish list. Don't wait until it's too late before you think. I was talking to a dad the other day whose 4-year-old daughter is terminal, and they basically stopped treatment. And he's telling me that I've already started to mourn. I'm mourning my daughter's loss and my daughter's death, and she hasn't even died yet. And I'm like, you need to celebrate every second with them whilst you still have them. Come up with some ideas, come up with some dreams, some goals, some wishes, to be able to ensure that whilst you still have that beautiful little soul in your life, that you do everything to ensure that they remember the joyous, incredible moments on this earth, and for you to be able to remember those incredible moments with them. As I said before, we can't wait until it's too late before we celebrate someone's life. And if they're still here and we can still celebrate, then that's an incredible gift. We can't live our life in fear. Fear is false evidence appearing real. Mourn after they're gone, but just be joyous for the fact that they're still here. I've experienced the pain that many have not, and I hope that many do not ever have to experience. And I've been told all my life that I'd never have a child, and I think that to be a father or a mother is the greatest gift that God can bestow on any of us. And in 2017, after 5 years of IVF, we finally announced to the world that we're going to have a baby, and that was just the most incredible gift that we could ever ask for. But as you all know, life doesn't go according to plan.
Yeah.
And we were due to have a baby the end of February 2018, but on that 8th of December 2017, my wife had a lot of back pain, went into labor, and 4 days later she gave birth to our little boy named Lachlan James, who was only 29 weeks, weighed 2 pounds, and was terribly, terribly unwell. And we were in intensive care unit level 3, and there was sadly babies dying all around us, and kids that were born with no skin, and the hope for our child wasn't there. And we were just making sure that every breath that he took, we were by his side, and everything that he could teach us. But every day he seemed to get stronger and stronger, and about a month later he was still breathing, and they couldn't believe that he was still alive. And they transferred us back to our local hospital 6 hours north of where we were. And we were just so optimistic that we were so close to bringing him home. And then the next day we got a call from the doctor telling us to come into the room, and my wife went to my little boy, and I went into the room with the doctor, and he sat me down, and I remember so clearly, he said, "Michael, we're terribly sorry, but we believe your son has an illness called sepsis, a blood disease.
Mm-hmm.
And if he makes the end of the week, it'll be a miracle." And I walked outside, and my wife said, "What did the doctor say?" And I told her that everything was going to be okay. And we were airlifted back to Sydney. I watched a man resuscitate my little boy, and I remember saying out aloud, just take everything I own. Take my house, take my car, take my career, take my followers, take everything that I have, but just don't take my little boy. And we wait until we're in that dire straight moment before we start to prioritize what's truly important.
Yeah.
I love the photo of a little boy staring up at his dad, watching his dad on the phone. And the caption is, "I wish I was my dad's phone. I'd finally get some attention." Don't wait until you don't have an opportunity to go and play catch. Don't wait until your child's grown up and moved on before you tell them how much you love them. Don't wait until your children are diagnosed with a life-threatening illness before you start to actually give them the attention and the love that they deserve. And, our little boy, he didn't want to quit. And he taught me so much in those few months that we had him in the hospital. And the day that we got to bring him home was just the most incredible gift that we could ever ask for. And to have him healthy and happy as a 2.5-year-old boy in my home now, and with the world the way it is, I lost 68 events. My career is I'm a full-time speaker. That's it. That's how I earn my money. There's no other income that comes in. And, I lost 68 events overnight when COVID kicked in. Basically 2 years worth of income. I lost my roadshow with Tony Robbins. My wife lost a job. My mum, who we financially support, lost a job. And my wife said, "What are we going to do?" And I said those famous words again. I don't know how, but everything's going to be okay. And that's why, these last 16 weeks that I've been in isolation, like I can't go outside and be with people because my immune system's so low that if this gets me, I'm out, and I'm not sitting around complaining about it. I'm using this as an opportunity to make a bigger impact. And that's why over the last 16 weeks, I've written another book. It's published through Wiley. And funny enough, the book's called Everything Will Be Okay. And it shares my whole journey. It also shares the battles with Lockie and my wife and the challenges that we continue to face. But it also goes through all the tools and principles that I try and live my life by to keep me optimistic and positive when times get tough. So I think through the darkness, we can learn so much so that when we are back in the light, we can appreciate them so much more.
Boy, I love that. What an inspiring story. You are so optimistic, so inspiring, so motivating. And the world needs a lot more Michael Crosslands. Boy, I really appreciate that. And I love your point of it doesn't matter how long we're on the earth or the number of our days doesn't equal our impact or success. And I just think back on how many times I've met one person for a short amount of time and they've impacted my life significantly. And it was just that one moment that they influenced me for good. And if we can have that kind of impact, no matter where we are in life, no matter how long we're on this earth, boy, that would be a successful life, I think.
I agree. I think the two points that I'd love to leave you with is that, there are two greatest days in one's life. The day that we are born and the day that we discover why we are born and realize why we are born. Right. And I think that when we understand our why, that is just a remarkable moment in our life. And I know that my why is to hopefully inspire and serve other people, to have them look at life a little differently. And my why is certainly to be the best dad that I possibly can be, to see that young boy look up into his daddy's eyes. And you feel like you're his hero. And that is just a remarkable gift. And I think the second point is through great darkness, that is our discovery moment. We do not discover how unfair our life is, but we begin to discover how powerful we have been created. And I think that through those dark times, we begin to realize that we have so much more in us, so much more fight, so much more courage, so much more determination that we never realized was in there. It was untapped potential.
Yeah.
And I think that through these dark times, it's about tapping into that potential and realizing what more we can do to serve those around us, to inspire those around us, to lead a better life and leave the world a better place than what we found it.
Sure. Well, thank you so, so much for taking time to be with us and share your story. And boy, that's inspiring. And it's motivated me to just be better. Just be better. You've got one book called Kids Don't Get Cancer, which I just love that. You said you wrote another one that just came out. Where can people find that? Where can they get it?
It's come out this week. Literally, it came out this week. I got the first print this week, and we have a big live event on Sunday night called the Fireside Chat with Mike. All the profits from my book all go to charity. We've never taken any money from the books. The first book's a bestseller in 6 countries around the world, and this one, Everything Will Be Okay, we're hoping can inspire people, especially right now with everything going on in the world. So you can grab it from our website, michaelcrossland.com, but you can get it from like Booktopia and Amazon and all those places as well. But if you buy it from those places, A, I can't sign them, and B, they take the profits, and we don't get to give much to our kids in Haiti and a whole heap of other different cancer charities that we support. But and if you jump on my social media pages and all those sort of things, there's always information on there about all that that stuff and more. So
great. Well, I'm excited to read it. I can't wait to get my hands on it. So you said your childhood dream was to play baseball in America, and it sounds like you fulfilled that dream. But if you ever come out to Salt Lake City, we'll do it again. We'll get a big baseball game together and have a good time out here. We'll treat you right.
Sounds amazing, mate. Look forward to it.
Hey, thanks again so much for taking time. We appreciate it. Wish you the very best.
My pleasure. Bless you all.
Boy, I hope you enjoyed that interview. I was so inspired and so motivated after talking with Michael that I rededicated myself to make some changes that I hope will help make me a better person from here on out. I love what he said about hope. And when it seems like all hope is lost or there is no hope, we just need to find one thing, something to hold on to that can help pull us through our dark times. He was given a 4% chance of survival, and that's all he and his mom needed. They grabbed onto that 4% and used that hope to get them through those early days of cancer. And hopefully you and I can be that hope to someone else. If someone needs someone to hold on to or something to hope for, hopefully we can be that hope for them. I also love what he said about the quality of our lives not having to do with the number of days we're on this earth, but what we do with the time that we're given while we're here. If it's a short amount of time, we can have just as much impact and influence as if we live to be 100. I really think that if we focus on the time that we're given and maximizing that time, everybody has the same 24 hours in a day, and some people are able to maximize that and use it to the fullest. Let's be sure to use every minute that we're given to the fullest. And finally, I love the title of Michael's new book, Everything Will Be Okay. One of my favorite quotes is from Clint Pulver, who says, "Don't lose faith in the end of the story. If it's not okay right now, it's not the end." We can't lose faith in the end of the story. Everything will work out. Everything will be okay. And I love that idea and I love that concept. And let's support Michael in this book. Go ahead and pre-order the book or buy it when it comes out. And if you're listening to this before August 9th, be sure to go to Michael's website, michaelcrossland.com, and find the link to the Fireside Chat where they're having an event to celebrate the launch of this book. Like he said, all of the proceeds go to charity, and it would be great to support Michael in this effort. So go ahead and find that link and go support Michael. Well, a big thanks to Michael Crossland for being our hero today, and a big thanks to you, the listener. I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did. I hope you got some value from that. My name is Joe Belliston. It's a great day to be alive. We'll see you next time, and God bless.